How to aggregate risk in an enterprise risk management system. Without aggregation, enterprise risk management loses any meaning and purpose. So if accepting the need to aggregate risk both from business units to group and between diverse natures of risk, how do you aggregate risks? Even after our recent webinar series on mastering 21st century enterprise risk management, there continues to be confusion around how to aggregate risk in an enterprise risk management system. Therefore, some risk managers are now advocating that risks cannot be aggregated, but without aggregation, enterprise risk management loses any meaning and purpose. So if accepting the need to aggregate risk both from business units to corporate group and between diverse natures of risk, the basic question of how to aggregate risks returns. Just recently again, someone tried to put forward the idea of averaging exposures as a consolidation technique. There are no circumstances you would want to do this. It's like having 1 foot in boiling water and 1 in ice. On average, you're perfectly comfortable. This stems from the common practice of using unrepresentative risk matrix modeling to evaluate risk exposure. They were essentially designed for their ease of use, not their effectiveness. The 2013 Milliman research report on OpRisk found that basic risk indicators and standard formula are ultimately a very blunt tool. That is the current common practice of rating characteristics with two-dimensional probability consequences risk matrix, which is then aggregated to produce a close to meaningless value, although better than nothing, has little relation to the real-world risk. Further, the concept of evaluating a risk as an absolute value in isolation to its environment and timeline is just not realistic. The probability of someone falling and hurting themselves may be low normally, but it will increase drastically if they have been working for long hours, if there is condensation on the floor, or if they have a previous history. So a single risk factor misrepresents the real exposure. So we need to move to scenario analysis for mapping risk causes, drivers, and outcomes and drop the old risk matrix. Within an enterprise risk management system, contrary to the common practice, risk needs to be grouped by their nature directly related to the business strategies and business objectives. Instead of process or controlled focused, risk outcomes have to be tightly coupled to corporate objectives to allow for the meaningful aggregation over disparate operations and natures of risk. Evaluating the risk outcomes in terms of capital, contribution, metric tons, or man days lost allows for the simple aggregation of a financial, safety, and reputational risk into a usable value. Conversely, it also allows executives to understand the importance and value of specific risk controls by their impact on business objectives. Approaching risk aggregation from this perspective allows staff and management to comprehend the true concept and purpose of aggregating risk and therefore the objectives of an enterprise risk management system. I'm a strong advocate for interconnectivity in risk management and the use of Bayesian networks to apply likelihoods. Apart from specialized software like FastTrack, there are a number of Excel add-ins for neural networks to map interconnectivity to which you can then add Bayesian inference. On each node in the neural map, you can estimate its contributing factor to related nodes. Example, the unit price has a 30% contribution to sales volume. This reduces complexity by only focusing on the direct relationship and not the overall effect. Risk is not a discrete value because uncertainty cannot be discrete. Unfortunately, risk is commonly incorrectly portrayed as a discrete value in a risk matrix or heat map. Rather, it is a range of possibilities best represented as a normal distribution or similar curve. However, more important than its current position on the curve is its direction, either whether it's improving or whether it's worsening. We can identify this by preparing a number of scenario analyses for each corporately significant risk event, linking items from our risk inventory into possible scenarios based on how they impact on one another. Example, a drop in exchange rate increases unit price, which decreases sales volume, increasing inventory holding, impacting our ROI objective. We then develop multiple scenarios for the best case, most likely, and worst case. Better still, also we include the getting better and the getting worse scenarios. Within our scenario, for each item, we can specify its likelihood and pick up its effect on the next component in the scenario from our neural network. Then using Bayesian modeling, we can not only predict the overall outcome on our objective, but also the effect of any individual movement of any factor within the scenario. Final aggregation is then achieved by again creating a Bayesian network of the favored outcomes from each scenario event for an objective. Yes, this means the aggregate risk is conditional on the combination of which scenario outcomes are selected. But isn't that the real world? Aggregating risks based of corporate objective measurements both horizontally as well as vertically through a Bayesian network, applying compounding conditional probabilities to handle complex interrelationships, provides an invaluable decision-making tool for management. Putting it all together, link risks back to strategic business objectives and quantify the risk in terms of their measured effect on the business objective. Map a neural network of interrelationships to quantify contributing factors. Define scenario analyses to identify potential risk events, states, and possible outcomes. Use Bayesian modeling to calculate both the severity and likelihood of risks, drivers, and outcomes. Aggregate both horizontally and vertically using the measure of the effect on the business objective. For those unfamiliar with some of the above techniques, please refer to Greg Carroll's book, which gives a step-by-step guide to designing a true enterprise risk management system. Aggregation of risk is one factor you need to reassess if you are serious about implementing an effective enterprise risk management system. Other issues include risk culture and attitude, resilience, environmental scanning to identify changes in causes and drivers and triggers for proactive real-time re-evaluation of risk profiles. These are all included in Greg Carroll's book, and its title is Mastering 21st Century Enterprise Risk Management, and it's available for purchase from Amazon and also the Fast Track website, which is www.fasttrack365.com. Thank you for listening.